Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know probably about half the people are still wandering in, but we're going to start anyway. Because if I delay starting, then people get used to that too. So we just have to get going. And plus, all of our internet crowd is out there, thousands and thousands of people just waiting, lined up out there to hear all we're going to say. Now, for those that didn't read all of the bulletin today, it's in there, but you didn't read it all. Mike's class, he'll start that next week. He's out of town. This week, shooting little animals, little ducks. So he's not with us tonight, but so he'll be in that next week. And he's going to be working on a book called Side by Side, which is very very helpful book on relationships and ministry with one another. So if you'd like to be in that class, we recommend you do that. Next week we'll divide these classes out and have Mike over here and me over here. So but tonight I just thought we'd go ahead and have everybody come to this class. You can get started on what we're doing. If you want to stay with us, that's great. I think the high schoolers are coming in. They're going to meander in late, but I think they're going to come in. And the reason why, as we'll see in a few moments, is when it comes to money, the sooner the better. The sooner you start, the better off. And the time to teach and get going on it is when you're a high schooler or even younger. And so I have taught this particular class all the way back to when I was a youth pastor. So this goes back into, something like this. I've upgraded, of course, but back into the 1970s. And I know that a number of people that went through that class in the youth group have been very much helped in their lifetime. If they were thinking back now, they're retired now, a lot of them. But they were very much helped by the principles they learned in the classes that we were taking at that time. So I think this is an important class for us to take. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is I talk to more and more people. It just happenstance a lot of time, and I find that very, very few people of any age know anything about finances. And as a result of that, they make a lot of mistakes, and and they're completely ignorant of what's happening in their financial world, and they're at the mercy of other people. And then they go to a seminar somewhere, and they end up buying things they shouldn't buy, getting involved in things they shouldn't get involved with, and it's a dangerous place to be. And so the more you know, the better off you are. So that's kind of where we are with this. Let me mention before I pray that years ago I was one of the 2 or 3 first people in Springfield area to get a certified financial planning designation. They were new at the time, and I was one of the first 2 or 3 that did that. We had a little gathering of all of us. There was 3 of us in town at the time. Now there's dozens of them at different places. But so I did that years and years ago, probably back in the 80s, in order that I might be able to help our people, pastors, missionaries, our people, different ones, to help them with their finances, because I have nothing to sell. I sell nothing. I make nothing. I know nothing. So it works out real well in this kind of circumstance. So actually, it enables me to be able to be helpful without having any skin in the game. And a lot of times throughout the years, people will bring to me their financial plans that they've had through various means, and I'm able to look at those and analyze those and give them insight on whether or not this is a good plan or a bad plan. About 80% of the time it's a bad plan. They've gotten bad advice. Keep in mind, if you go to somebody who's selling a product, they have a life to live. They're selling a product. And it's nothing illegal or wrong. It's just that they have a life to live, and I don't. I have no life to live, so I can tell you things that I've got nothing to gain or lose, but I can give you advice that should be helpful. So I hope that's I guess a lead in to what we're doing here, and that our time together will be good. So let's pray, and then we'll get started. Father, we come before you now, thanking you that you've given us resources that you want us to handle in ways that the world doesn't handle it, and that we can be blessed with what you've given and bless others and further your work throughout the world because of what you've provided for us. And Lord, I pray that we can get, first of all, the values that you give us, to get those nailed down, biblical values, and then secondly, to handle the resources you give us in the wisest possible way for your glory. So help us as we work together in the next few weeks. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, in our BTI class, by the way, this will be whenever we have BTI, so we're having it this week and next week. And then we have the concert, the David Phelps concert. I hope you signed up for that. Again, the song Larry sang today was one of his songs. And that's a type of music he sings if you're not used to him. Very, very good stuff. So we hope you're coming to that. Then we have small groups after that. Then we'll come back in the BTI. So that's kind of how this is working, okay? Okay, so we're looking at Mastering Your Money. That's the name of a book by Ron Blue that goes back many years. I've read a lot of financial books over the last 3 decades. I don't think, even though this is probably outdated in some ways, I don't think I found any book better than Mastering Your Money by Ron Blue. He's written a number of other books later on the same subject. Most recent one I just read was on retirement. It was absolutely excellent. And I might touch on that in the late stages of this course. But that's where the name comes from. So let me just kind of hit you with some stats and interesting thing together. The average personal savings rate, that ain't what I wanted to do. Somehow that didn't come up. This has to be the right thing, right? Okay, maybe I don't have a PowerPoint for this one. Many individuals have no idea where their money is going, whether they earn $5,000 or $500,000 a year. They just don't know where it's going. And only a small percentage of baby boomers are projected to be financial independent at retirement. So every announcement that comes out concerning retirement and baby boomers or millennials or anybody else is alarming. How many people are not going to be able to be financially independent in their retirement years? One of the reasons for that, by the way, and this will get into some of what we're doing, is that the pension plans of the past are gone away. Unless you work for the state or an unusual place, pensions are no longer. So for many, many decades, the pension plans protected the retirements for people, as they didn't even know what they were doing, but the pensions set up things for them. Those are gone for most people. So you're not going to get those unless you work for the government and occasionally some company or two. So only a percentage of baby boomers know what they're doing financially independent at retirement age, and very, very few know what they're doing at all. I was going to look up the quote, but Marcia and I went to a seminar just recently on retirement by a good group here in town, that laid out some thoughts. And one of the things they brought out was that the number of people who actually have their financial life in some kind of organized fashion are almost nil. They almost scoffed at the idea of how many people have come to them. Thousands have come to them. And rarely does anybody really have their system in order. And rarely, if they died today, could their family be able to pick it up and go with it and know what's going on. And that was what they're involved in, trying to help people like that. So most people have not planned ahead in an awful lot of ways. In 2024, the average personal saving rate is 2.9% of the annual income, which included retirement. That's what your retirement plans. And what's alarming there, that compared to the average of 8.82% from 1959 to 2018. Massive drop in savings in the decades coming up to now. And why do you think that might be? Why do you think there's this big drop in savings in the last 5-10 years? Yeah.
They're using credit cards too much or relying on credit cards.
Okay. Credit card debt. Yeah.
Huge inflation in the last few years.
Yeah.
People can't afford to, they don't think they can afford to put as much money away as they have to spend it on.
Okay. Yeah, inflation has really kicked a lot of people badly, and they having to spend more money to just live. Okay. Yeah.
Materialism problem.
Okay, that's another really good one. People are just spending more money on their own stuff. So if you watch the economy going up and down, you watch the people talking about this, it's the consumer that's keeping the economy floating, they keep talking about. But that means they're going basically in debt. The credit card debt since the pandemic has just risen crazy as people are charging more and more and more and more, going in debt more and more. And that short term can work. Long term, it's fatal. And so there's very few people that actually are saving much money today.
A friend of mine who taught at one of the universities said that on his campus, that were getting high college kids applications to credit cards and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And here they are already, before they even understand the accruing of the percentage rate, are spending money like crazy.
Yeah, that's right. So they want to get them used to spending money on credit. And that's gone back for a while. That's a good point. Okay, so another stat here is that 28% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account or any kind of savings. 33% have zero retirement, and 25 million have no personal savings whatsoever. So what happens when something goes wrong at your house? Your furnace dies or your transmission goes out of your car. What happens at that point in time? Well, you have no choice. If you want to drive to work, keep your house warm, you've got to go in debt. And so this is the rotation that most people get on because they have no means of paying for even a small $1,000 concern. And this is not just a few people in the corner somewhere. This is a large minority of Americans have nothing that they can fall back on in their savings and so forth. In 2024, the average American household contributed 2.1% of its annual income to charity. So remember, we're talking about Christian financial planning, and that our values are different. And one of the values that most of us should have as God's people is we're generous givers to the things of Christ. But that's not holding up real well in America, and the numbers with Christians is not a whole lot better. Just to give you a rundown on it, I think I've always found these statistics very interesting. If you're having an average income, if your income is under $50,000 a year, your average contribution is to charities of all kind, including churches, is $2,500 or so. That's 8.4% of the income on average. But notice as we drop on down that the richer you get, the more stingy you get for a while. So the people in the middle there, making it up to $500,000 a year, are only giving 2.9%. And then it kind of slowly pops back up so that people who are making up to $10 million a year are now giving half of what the poor people give, percentage-wise. So the point is, the more we have, the more stingier we get. The more we have, the more we want to keep for ourselves. And the rich people, there are exceptions to this, but most of the rich people are not. The more you make, the less you're likely to give away. And by the way, the statistics for Christian giving, church giving, is pretty much the same, sadly. A lot of churches talk a lot about tithing, 10%. There are very, very, very few Christians who give 10% of their income to the Lord's work. And that, I think that's a tragedy. I think that's awful. But that is the statistics that we are given. According to the National Council on Aging, 40% of Social Security recipients, 65 plus, in 2024 depended on Social Security for most of their monthly income. 80% of older adults are at risk of falling into economic insecurity. So a lot of the poor people, older people, simply don't have anything but Social Security hanging out there for them, or very little more than that. And then money is a big issue in our marriages and our lives. According to one researcher that reflects a lot of others, money problems in marriage is the #1 predictor of divorce. So it isn't that money causes the divorce, but it adds to all the woes and the troubles that we have. So if you're arguing about how to spend money, or where money ought to go, or that we don't have money to pay the bills, and the tensions are there, that adds a great strain on marriage. The median savings of the working age family right now is $55,000. Now, keep in mind the median versus average. Average is if you took everybody who has any savings and took all their savings and divided it by the number of people who has savings, that would be average. But that's kind of a skewed number because you got people like the Warren Buffetts and the Bill Gates who have millions and billions of dollars saved, and that skews the averages. So medium is a much better number. Medium is you take 1,000 people and the medium would be the one right in the middle. So the medium person, what we're talking about here, the medium people, the people right in the middle, is saving, has $5,000 total savings. Again, that is not enough to fix your furnace. That is probably not enough to fix your transmission. And so if you get hit with something unexpected, you don't have the funds. And that would drain everything you got if you had, even if you had 5,000. And then when something else comes up, what are you going to do? So these are kind of startling things. And notice by age, the medium retirement savings by age group, the younger people, which you kind of expect less, 34 and under, have $1,000 saved for retirement. 35 to 44, $2,500. But 45 to 65 basically have $4,000 or $5,000 saved for retirement. That doesn't leave a whole lot there when you get to retirement age. And I think a lot of people think, well, I'm just going to keep on working forever, but most people don't. So I've been hearing for years that, well, people are going to work way into their 70s, even their 80s. But I think the retirement age is closer to 64. And that's because people get fired, they lose their jobs, they lose their health, they have different reasons, and they have nothing to fall back on. So keep in mind that you can't get Social Security until you're 62, and that's way reduced. And most people, the retirement age is 67, and yet most people are retiring 2 or 3 years before that. Yep.
I think due to the inflation and everything, I see older people re-entering or staying in the workforce.
A lot of people are coming back because they have to,
Right.
but they have nothing saved otherwise. But not all people can do that. And if they do, they come back to work at McDonald's. It's not a great job. An 80-year-old lady standing on her feet all day, handing out burgers and fries is tough, you know, and it's sad that they have to do that, but you're right. Okay, so those are just some things to get you thinking. So you might be asking, well, how much money should I save? Okay, so here's what the financial planners, whoever they are, is recommending that you save towards retirement, or towards your savings. In your 20s, aim to save 25% of your overall gross pay. Okay, so how much is your gross pay? All right, 25% of that. Now that is so far off from what I just showed you. 2% is being saved today. Recommendation is 25%. All right? So if you make $40,000 a year, you should be saving $10,000 of that. Can you do that?
No.
Yes. Because if you lost $10,000 of your income, somehow you would live. Somehow you would live. It's amazing what you can do if you have to. But it would be tight. There's no doubt about that. It'd be tough. But most people can make a little more than that. That includes, by the way, their entire retirement accounts, matching funds in your company, savings, and so forth. Okay, so that's in your 20s. We're going to look at that in a moment. In your 30s, you should have accumulated your annual salary and savings. So if you make $50,000 a year, these are numbers we're throwing out, then by age 30, you ought to have $50,000 in the bank. That goes up every 5 years. At age 35, you should have twice your annual salary saved. 40, 3 times. 45, 4 times. 50, 5 times. 55, 6 times. 60, 7 times. 65, 8 times your annual salary saved. So if you're making $50,000 a year now, you should have $400,000 saved by that time. Yeah.
Are you including retirement?
Yes. Yeah. So that includes everything. So if you have a good pension plan, most people don't have a pension plan, but if you have one, or if you have a retirement plan, a 401k, those types of things, that would include this. Yeah. Jim?
You know, some perspective that really got over my eyes a few years ago on this, and part of it from your class in the past, is you start calculating out how much money do you want to have available to you in your retirement. You know, a safe rate of return might be 4%, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You need $1 million in the bank to get $40,000
Yeah.
a year. That's how much money it takes in the bank.
Mm-hmm. If you're doing 4%, you said?
4%, that gives you $40,000, which is nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So we're saying, you know, this sounds pretty daunting, especially if you're one of those that haven't saved a dime yet. But these are numbers that you ought to be looking at and thinking about. So how can this be accomplished? So, so let's give you some encouragement. Now you're depressed. Let's encourage you. These numbers, by the way, should exclude your home. So don't count your equity in your home in these numbers. Okay, because for most people, that's their biggest investment, their home. So that doesn't count with this. Okay, here's encouragement for you. If you save $100 a month at 7%, and that the average rate on the stock market has been between 8 and 10 historically. So this is doable long term. Saving $100 a month at age 25. At age 70, you would have $343,000. If you wait to start doing this at age 30, you'll have $240,000. 35, 166, 40, 113. If you wait to the ripe old age of 45, okay, you're just about decrepit, 45 years old, and you wait and you start saving $100 a month, 7%, you'd only have $76,000 when you reach age 70. You see the big deal? The earlier the better. The sooner you start saving money, putting it away, investing properly, the better off you're going to be. Time is one of the great things here as far as accumulation of money. Start early, and that's the key. Now, why don't people do this? Well, there's several reasons. Ron Blue said in his book, most of us are responders rather than planners. We respond to friends, advertising, emotions rather than planning our spending. So we're responders. Somebody comes up with a get-rich-quick scheme, and we go for it. And somebody else tells you, well, here's a plan, and you haven't thought it out. Whatever else, you respond to advertising. What are those channels on TV that are selling stuff 24/7? What are they? QVC. Okay, I don't even know what that is, so I'm glad you know. Anyway, so somebody, I actually know people that sit on that hours a day and order stuff all the time. Just responding to these advertisements. And usually going in debt, spending their money doing that kind of stuff. So there's all that kind of thing. Everything on TV, everything in the news, everything in the media is trying to get you to spend money. And if we respond to that without thinking that out, we're not going to do well. Yeah.
How about Amazon Prime Day for our younger crowd?
Yeah. You got to buy it now because it's Amazon Prime Day. It's not going to be available tomorrow, right? So we got to buy the stuff that's on sale today. Yeah, these sales, So to plan it out is, here's something I want to buy, and here's something when I buy it, I'm not going to respond just because some sales comes up, okay? But that's not how most people function. So we're working against human nature here. The purpose of this course then is threefold. Number one, to teach biblical and practical principles of handling finances. It's going to be biblical in the sense that this is a Christian principles that we're looking at. Christians should handle their money differently than unsaved people do. And we'll look at some of the principles in a moment. Number two is to give you an opportunity to apply these principles. So we'll work through this in class, and we hope you do some homework. Go home and do some study, stuff we ask you to do, and begin to have this opportunity to apply that. And then to encourage you to take control of your finances right now. So don't wait for later, because later may never come, and the sooner you start, the better. So this is the goals of the class. Okay, let's start here now with some biblical principles. So get your Bible out, and there is, as we look at these principles, there are some foundational truths. We'll start with the book of Haggai, way back in the Old Testament, one of the very last books of the Old Testament, Haggai chapter 2, verse 8. And these are principles that should guide the way we as Christians handle money. Number one, all money belongs to God. It's not yours. You're stewards. Anything God has given you, it's still His. And how we spend it, it should glorify Him, right? So look at Haggai 2:8. And now she does not know that it was I who gave her the grain the new wine and the oil, speaking of Judah, and multiplied silver and gold for her, which they used for Baal. He is saying everything that Judah had was given to them by God, and they didn't know it. And then they went and used it for idols. How tragic. Yet that lays down a principle. All that God has given us, the board died. Oh, the board came alive. Just stand there, Tavis, and hold that thing. Next 2 hours. That'll work well. Is it working now? How come the board died? The dying board. Okay, going back real quick then. So, really, honestly, this is so foundational. There's nothing you have that is yours. Nothing. So everything every dime we spend, everything we accumulate, everything we get should be sifted through the mindset. This is God's. It's not mine to use any way I want to use it. It's His. And that would radically change many people's idea about money. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. These are just representative verses and scriptures of this same concept. Verse 18 of chapter 8 of Deuteronomy. For you shall remember Yahweh your God, for it is He who is giving you power to make wealth, and He may confirm His covenant with which He swore to your fathers as it is this day. Now notice that phrase in the middle. He has given you the power to make wealth. So for every person who thinks, wow, I'm above the herd, I've been able to accumulate money, I've been able to do financially very well, I want you to know something. God gave you the ability to do that. And you have been born into a situation, maybe you have the mind, maybe you have the opportunities that God has given you. Don't get too haughty about that. Don't get too proud about that. Maybe you have done very well financially, and maybe you have done it, handled your money well. But remember, God gave you that ability. And whenever we get proud about something like that, we have missed the boat. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, one of the New Testament principles. And we'll look at other principles, especially in 1 Timothy later, not tonight. But 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. It says, for who regards you as superior? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as if you had not received it? Now, this is in a different context, a broader context than money. But notice the same principle. When you start thinking, well, I'm pretty hot stuff, I got all this money and I got all this stuff I'm doing, and other people, if they're poor, that's their own fault. You should remember, God gave you the ability to do this. Don't regard yourself as superior to others. That's pride, and pride is always deadly. Okay, what else we got in biblical principles? 1 John 3:17 is a good example. Again, remember, these are representative passages. They're not isolated passages. There are many passages on this subject. 1 John chapter 3, verse 17. God does not give us the privilege of having money or owning possessions in order for us to live selfishly. Now, the world does that. People accumulate money to live selfishly, money for themselves. We're Christians. We live differently. There's different principles by which we live, different values. 3:17 of John, 1 John, he says this, but whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Now, that doesn't mean you go out there and give all your money to everybody on the street corner who's out there with his cup. He's talking here about the brother, first of all. When you see somebody you really know, especially a believer who's hurting financially, who has a need, a true need, and you close your heart up against that person and you have the means to help them, now where's the heart of God in you? We're not given finances so we can accumulate more and more and more and more and more stuff. We are given finances so that we can use it honorably for the Lord's glory. 1 John 2, we neither are to love or worship money. Now this is, again, doesn't speak of money directly, but money is a part of the world system. Do not love the world nor the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the boastful pride of life is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away and also its lust, but the one who does the will of God abides forever. So when we buy the world's standards of life, the world's system, their values, then we are in love with the world and not in love with God. And so again, all that we're doing with all that we have, including our money, is to be very distinguished from the world. We don't live like the world. We don't think like the world. We don't give and accumulate money like the world. We have very different standards. We're not to love money, and we're not to worship money at all. Money is a very good servant. It's a horrible master. You allow money to be a good servant, you can do wonderful things with it. You let it master your life, it becomes the reason you exist, then it will eat you up, because money is cold and hard and ruthless. And so we don't live like that. We're Christians. Okay? And then go back to Ecclesiastes, back there right after the Psalms a little bit if you're not familiar. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 10. And we got another principle. We will never possess enough money to be satisfied. You know that? 5:10, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves abundance with his produce. This to his vanity. When good things increase, those who consume them increase. So what is the success to their masters except to look on it with their eyes? Verse 10 is so important. What wisdom is here? How much money do you need? A little bit more for most people. You're never satisfied with what you got. Always want more, no matter how much you've got. But you're never satisfied with that. So we have to look at it very differently than the world looks at it. If we cannot be responsible with money, going back to Luke 16, this is again not in the direct context of our finances, but it is kinda. Luke 16, 10 and 11. If we cannot be responsible with money, God is not likely to trust us with things of more important responsibilities. Verse 10, he who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you with true riches to you? So think about this in a minute. Money is a test case. Actually, God gives us resources to test us. How are you going to use it? John MacArthur had a pretty good quote in a book on this subject. He says, in a sense, money is a good barometer of your spirituality, because the way you handle money is an indication of your performance as a Christian steward. Okay, so that goes back. Why would the Lord give you the responsibility of very truly important things, such as the souls of people and ministering the lives of people? Why would he give you that responsibility when you can't handle the mundane things of money? And this goes back to my little sermonette on giving. I mean, if you're a Christian and you're giving ungenerously, you've missed the boat somewhere. You really have. And I can't give you the exact number that you should be giving, but you should be giving generously, because that is a test case in your life. Go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. God expects you to take control of your financings in a number of ways. So there's 3 different ways that he gives us here to take care of our finances. Number 1 is by working. So again, going back a little bit to some of the ways people gain money, things that are unethical, or things where we're expecting other people to take care of us when we can take care of ourselves, doesn't fit the test of how we are to gain money. We're to work. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. For even when we were with you, used to command this to you, if anyone is not willing to work, neither let him eat. For we hear that some among you are walking in an unruly manner, doing no work at all, but acting like busybodies. Now such persons we command and exhort in the Lord Jesus Christ, that working with quietness and eat their own bread. Okay? So God calls us to take care of ourselves, if we can. Now we always know there's exceptions. We always know there's some people that can't take care of themselves, so we help them. That goes back to the other principle. But when we can take care of ourselves, we should be working. Even if we can't work at the job we want, we work and take care of ourselves. How about savings? Is that unbiblical? Proverbs, chapter 12, and there's several Proverbs like this. Proverbs is just filled with wisdom for normal living of life on this planet. God's book of wisdom for us on how to live life. Look what it says about savings, chapter 12, verse 11 of Proverbs. He who cultivates his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who pursues empty things lacks a heart of wisdom. So you work your land, you'll be satisfied with bread. You plan ahead. You pursue empty things, that's nonsense. Don't chase after pyramid schemes. Don't go after this or that investment that somebody touted on the internet. The gambling going on in America today is a sign of where our hearts are. These gaming places everywhere you go. It's just constant. Everybody trying to make a fast buck, trying to win. Most people, when I've seen people go into the store to get their $7 pack of cigarettes and buy a lotto ticket, look like people that could hardly buy a meal. Okay, that's a lot of those people are doing that, and yet they're hoping to strike it rich. So what does Proverbs say about that? He who pursues empty things lacks a heart of wisdom. It's not wise doing these things. Chapter 13, verse 11. Wealth obtained from empty effort dwindles, but the one who gathers with his hand abounds. So you're trying to get rich, quit schemes type of things. That's not going to get it done. It's work, save, plan. And then as far as planning, chapter 24 of Proverbs, verses 3 and 4, this goes back to our class. Why do we plan financially? Well, it's wise to do so. By wisdom a house is built, and by discernment is firmly established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Chapter 30, verse 25. The ants are a strong people. I like that. They're people. I like that. But they prepare their food in the summer. They plan ahead. Little ants plan ahead. And he uses them as an example. So we're to plan, we're to save, we're to work. This is part of God's design for how we are to handle money in a biblical manner. I would say this, kind of random maybe, but Scripture teaches a balance when it comes to money. A miser who doesn't spend anything, just accumulates it like Scrooge McDuck, remember him? You know, he has this warehouse full of coins. They're no more spiritual than the spendthrift who spends every bit of everything he has, comes in and borrows more. Both have a wrong view of money. Both are misusing money. A Christian view on finance is largely different from a secular view because of principles like these and others we'll look at later. The Christian has different priorities, and their priority is God and His work, not self and material things. Of course, everybody's going to question and when it get down to how much can I have personally and be in the will of God? Well, we're not going to look at that right now. God has given us all good things to enjoy. God has allowed most of us to have things we should have probably never even thought we could have. Okay, that's not necessary to be despised. And God never condemns people with wealth. 1 Timothy chapter 6, he'll talk about the rich and how they should handle it. He never condemns wealthy people. What he does condemn is the misuse of wealth. Okay, so we'll look at some of those principles later. But I want to get started the next 15 minutes or so. I want to get started on what we're doing here. And we'll come back to other biblical principles in the weeks to come. Let's get started. What keeps people from doing these things? What keeps people from saving, starting a plan for their future financially? What are they? Well, If I ask for questions, I could get a bunch, but I'm just gonna give you some. First of all, laziness. We are by nature, most of us, lazy. I'm sorry. We're not lazy when we're doing something we like to do. You know, for me, I can sit and read and study 10 hours, 20 hours a day. Not 20, 15. How about 15? I can do that, and that somebody said, man, that's a lot of work. Yeah, but I like it. Want me to rake the backyard? Not so much. I don't like raking the backyard, and I hate to watch Marcia do it all, you know? So, but most of us are lazy about things we don't want to do. So we're lazy. We just don't do it. Well, secondly is we're stubborn. Yeah, I know none of you are stubborn, but there are people out there that are stubborn, and they said, I just don't want to do it. It's too much work for me. I'm lazy to begin with. Too much work for me to get busy on this kind of thing. So I'm just not going to do it. You can't talk me into it. You can't shame me into it. I don't care. Stubbornness. Thirdly, lack of knowledge. Now, this is what this course is designed to help us with. Again, as I talk to different ones, and this is kind of what got me jump-started, maybe we ought to do this round for as we're moving into BTI stuff, is I've been talking to a number of people about things like this, and many of them, most of them I've talked to recently, don't know anything about money. They don't know what a CD is. They don't know what a money market is. They don't know how you could buy a house. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know what a mutual fund is. They don't know anything. And I just don't think that's what Christians ought to be. Christians ought to have some insight into these things and have some understanding. Otherwise, they're going to be taken advantage of. Are they going to waste their money? Are they going to come up to a place in their life somewhere along the line when they're not going to have what they need, and they're going to have to depend on the government or other friends or somebody else, and that's too bad. We ought to have some ideas. We ought to know what we're doing, have some knowledge. So this class is not going to make you a financial guru. That's not the goal, but the goal is to give you a knowledge so you understand what is going on, at least a little bit. And then procrastination, even if you have, after you take this course and go through all this and you say, wow, I really ought to do that, that's good stuff, I think I will, but I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, procrastination is the great deceiver of most people, and most people are procrastinators, and will put it off, as we'll see in a moment, is much easier to start as soon as you possibly can. So procrastination, it's hard just to get off that lazy boy and go in there and get out some paper and your checkbook and begin to think. So most people won't do it, quite frankly. So it's much easier to accumulate money by starting early in life. So for the young people that are in here, wake up for a couple seconds. I'm going to give you something wonderful. If you invest $1,000 annually, all right, so how are you going to get $1,000 if you're 12? You're going to go work in Kurt Fleck's farm. Okay? So for the year, you got $1,000. What are you going to do with that $1,000? Well, you can do like some of our grandkids do and leave it all over the house. I heard rumors about that. Or you stick it in a piggy bank or whatever you do. But what if you could save $1,000 a year? By the time you're 12, quite honestly, you could save $1,000 a year. You can mow grass. You could shovel snow if it ever snows. You could rake leaves. I'd come over to my house and rake my backyard. You could make some money here and there, and you could do this. Okay. If you earn, I'll give you several charts just to impress you. Okay. If you earn 5% on that $1,000 a year, in 5 years you'd have $5,525. In 20 years, jumping over to the far end, that money that you stuck away as a 12-year-old for the next years, 20 years, $1,000 a year, you could have $33,000. Now somebody says, well, that isn't much money, really. I can't buy a Jeep with that. Well, you know what? $33,000 is a whole lot more than most people have, just because they saved $1,000 a year. That's at 5% interest. So that's about what a CD is paying right now. You can get close to 5%, perfectly safe. As you move up on down the line, notice here though, and this is not necessary to tell you what to do right now, but just to give you some insight. The more interest you make, the more interest or return on your investment, the faster your money grows, right? So if you go to the 8%, you earn 8% over here. At the end of 20 years, you have $45,700. That's about what the stock market has returned over the years. 8%. A lot of times it's done 10%. So 57,000 in that case. 12% is a little harder to do. Some people manage that, but if you could do that, you can get $75,000. I think, some of you Dave Ramsey fans tell me, I think Dave often uses that 12% figure, doesn't he? Isn't that correct? So he's criticized for that a lot, that how are you going to get 12% on your money? And so although I think it can be done, most people won't do that, but you can get 8%. Historically, you can get 8%. So look at the difference. So you got this money from that. And let's go on with another chart. Now this is even better for you kids. All right? How to retire at age 55 with $1 million before taxes. We're not going to talk about taxes. Requiring people a required amount of money per month at 10%, a little high, but we're just looking at numbers. If you start at age 20, let's see, you would need to save $263 a month to have $1 million at age 55. If you start at age 20. If you wait to 30, you'd have to save $753 a month. If you wait, once again, till you're just hardly can get out of bed at age 40, you would have to save $2,400 a month. What's the cue here? What's the key? Start early. Okay, start early. And the earlier you start, the easier it'll be and pretty much painless. If you do it, if you know what to do. And that's when you're done in here, you're going to know what to do this. Okay, let's do one more chart, I think. Here's a real easy one, kids. By kids, I mean you teenagers or 6-year-olds or 50-year-olds, whatever you are. At 5% interest. Now, everybody can do 5% right now. How much would you, if you could save $7 a week? $7. You can find that in the couch at my house. All right? Just come on over and clean them up. The value after 10 years will be $4,700. $4,700. If you could save $35 a week, then you could have $23,000, $23,600 in 10 years. Doing almost nothing. Not that, but why don't people do this? They're lazy, they procrastinate, they don't plan ahead, and they don't look at a plan. But you could do that. So what I'm trying to show you here, this is not rocket science, this is not high finance. Almost anybody can save $7 a week. Okay?
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
Go back to the slide before, and this again is just for young people, but that $263 around age 20, that's halfway funding your IRA, right? That's not even fully funding it. So, but that's the number, right? Fully funding is around $530 a month.
All month.
Yeah, but that's for to get to the million. That number's, I mean, it's very feasible.
Okay.
Right?
So if you had an IRA, so it's not taxed, and put that money in there, this is what you'd have. Good point. So it's feasible. It can be done. Most people don't think it can be done, but notice what we're looking at. We're looking at time. We're looking at actually putting money aside, and we're looking at how much our return is. Those are the big numbers. And we'll talk about those more later as well, okay? So start early in life. Okay, questions on that? Any thoughts? Yeah, Kim?
Just a comment on that. One of the things that when I started, working toward goal on this, when I was younger was, starting to put these funds into an IRA or deferred compensation, whatever in the state, is you got real intimidated by realizing you can't touch that money until you're 59 and a half years old.
Okay.
And you thought, what if I have something going on, that I need that money?
Yeah.
Well, there are emergencies allow that. Jim can probably address that
Yeah.
more on that. But that became a very big intimidation where you didn't want to put that in there, but you gotta put it in there, and you gotta leave it in there.
Okay.
It's work.
Yeah. Let me come back to that just one second. Would you guys pass these around? One of these per couple? Okay, if singles is get more, but a couple, I think, I got 50 here, I should do it for couples. Okay, Kim's making a good point. So another reason why a lot of people are not able to accumulate anything is they do for a little while. And then they can't stand it. And so they've never had money before. Now they got $5,000 and there's sets. And so they go after it. I've known many people who have accumulated money in a 401k or an IRA for retirement. And Kim is right. The laws are you cannot get that out to your 59 and a half without a penalty. So you're supposed to leave it there. But I've known many, many people that couldn't stand it, and they went out and took all their money out of their IRAs and bought something with it, a car or whatever else. And as a result of that, years later, they have nothing. So that's a good point. You got to, later on when we talk about investment, we're talking about money that you don't touch. You leave it go until you reach your goal. We'll talk about goals as well.
Hey, Gary,
Yeah.
with the $7 a week thing too, one of the things I deal with kids at work too is like, that's one day of not buying your Monsters and not buying your coffee.
Ooh, now you're getting
not
nasty.
feeling- yeah, I'm getting nasty.
Did everybody get one of those? Did you get one? Who didn't get one? Did you get one? Isaac, Malachi, why don't you give yours to your parents, since they probably will handle it better. Does anybody have an extra? Is there an extra one somewhere? Oh, got one back there. So do you need one, Brent? You get one later? Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure. Okay. We're going to look at this in just a minute, but we're going to look at the financial planning process, okay, for a minute. And this is where we're going to be going in the days to come. Number one, gather personal and financial data. Now, once again, I am amazed, but the more I hear, apparently it's normal, that the average person has no idea what they have. They don't know what they owe. They don't know where it's going. They don't know what they have in the bank. They don't know what they're going to need. They don't know. And we're hoping to help with this a little bit. So you're going to need to gather some information. And that goes to the laziness and the procrastination parts. You have to go do it. Okay? And you'll be glad you did, by the way. Number two, establish financial goals and objectives. What do you want to accomplish with your money in the future? Number four, process and analyze information. Number that's three. Number four, develop a comprehensive plan. Number five, implement the plan. Number six, monitor the plan. This is what we're going to be doing in the weeks to come. So I want to go straight to that thing I just gave you. This is your homework, kind of. So we're going to look at that, and I'll work you through it. And over the years, I've taught this course a dozen times, 10 times. I usually have a class about this many people. So we got 70 people here, 80 people. I don't know what we got. Maybe more than that. And 90% of them learn a little bit and go away and do nothing. There's always a handful of people that say, well, you know what? It's time to get busy and do it right. And certain people have always been helped a great deal by doing that. I hope you're one of those. And I hope a bunch of you are those. But you can't go anywhere with this until you do some homework. So the first thing you need to do is start with this thing right here. So let's go back, and this can be fun. I think this is fun. I don't know if maybe I'm weird, and you know I'm weird. Go get your checkbook, get your accounts, whatever you've got, and just go through it. Sit down with your spouse or your kids or whatever you're doing. Find out what you own. So that includes any money you have in the bank, and that includes a money market. If you don't know what a money market is, well, I'm sorry. You need to know what a money market is, and we'll talk about the differences there later. But if you have one, get it. Do you have life insurance with cash value? Okay. I don't recommend that, by the way. But if you have that and you don't know what that is, call an agent. Find out how much cash value you have. Number three, savings. So this is not just money in the bank, but this would be money you have to put aside in a savings account or something else where you're saving for the future. Stocks and bonds. Do you have any mutual funds, stocks, bonds, any kind of investment things? What are those? How much do you have? Real estate. What is your house worth on the market today if you have a house? Okay, what do you have? What's your equity in that house? So that would be equity then. Let's say you have a $200,000 house. but you owe $100,000 on it. So your equity is the difference. It's worth $100,000. So that's what you want to find out. Well, actually, on this chart, I'm going to take all out what I just said back. Don't worry about what you owe on it yet. We'll get to that in a minute. Just put down what the house is worth. And you can go on Zillow, I think, and these different things, and get a good estimate, or find out what people are selling their houses for around you. You look at them and they say, well, they sold theirs for 150, and mine's much better. So add 20%. Be realistic. Other investments, anything you got. So half the church in here has a stockpile of guns that are worth a fortune, right? Your guns and ammunition is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Okay, if you do have an investment worth having, well, it could be commodities, whatever, put that down. How about your personal possessions? So if your stuff was sold at auction, how much would you get? I know you bought that furniture for $5,000, but you try to sell it, and you'd be lucky to get $500. Okay, so think that through. So if you kick the bucket, when Marcia and I die, our kids are not going to want anything we've got. You know, so they're going to sell all of our furniture, and they're going to sell it. What would they get for it? Don't get carried away. We get a little bit. Not a lot. You're right, not a lot. But and think of the stuff you've got stored in that storage bin that you haven't looked at in 3 years, that's now molded and gone to rust. How much are they going to get out of that storage bin? Be realistic. What do you got? Automobiles, how much are your cars worth? You can get that from Credit Karma or other places. Other property, boats, and trailers, trailers for rent. That's a song, by the way. Special property. We got cameras and guns and camping equipment or whatever else. So anything you got. Interest in a retirement or pension plan. Okay, so your thing, all that is kind of, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate even, but be realistic. Some of this you could know easily, some of it maybe you're guessing, but get that down. Now what we own, add it all up, and there's your grand total. This is what you are worth minus what you owe. Then go to the other side of the equation. What do you owe? Well, you might have a mortgage, you might have loans to the bank, or credit card loans, or insurance, whoever you owe money to. Okay. Add all that up and write that down. And then recap it. What we own, what we owe, what we've accumulated over time, number of years of accumulation, average annual accumulation of resources, kind of fun to see. So for example, some of you are very young, or you're just married or not married or whatever, and you have not accumulated a lot yet. But you have some. The goal is to start the process of accumulation in this. And so this kind of chart, I do this once a year. On January 1 every year, after I come home from the great party we have on New Year's Eve, I sit down and go through all this material and see how we've done. And it's very encouraging. I'll tell you this, having done this for 44 years. I started investing in 1980. So for 44 years, I go back and look at this, and I am amazed at the difference. So if you're young, you say, well, really, I got nothing. But you start with where you are. And over time, you build up. But you got to start somewhere. And this is a simple plan on how to do that. So that's the idea. Your homework then is to go home and do this week. So you come back next week and we begin to go further into how you spend your money. This is where it gets really painful. We've already been reminded about our lattes and our eating outs and stuff that we spend a lot of money. So how much money are you really spending? And we're going to start looking at that. And what you're going to find out, most of you, is you're spending a whole lot more money on stuff you don't even know you're spending money on. It's kind of convicting. And a lot of times we think, well, I can't do anything, but I'm spending $17, $20, $30 a week on eating out at lunchtime and buying coffees every morning that don't have to do that. But I don't want to convict you too much here, so just want to mention that. Anyway, this is where we're going. So this is a relatively simple plan that even 12-year-olds can build on and begin the process of handling your money according to God's values. Okay? So we'll pick up on this next week. Really try to do this thing this week. Go home and do it. Sit down with your spouse, your friends, your family, and go through it. And good stuff. By the way, this is a good thing to put, once you get this down, this is a good kind of thing to put in a place that your family could find if you died. It's a horrible thing to pass away and nobody knows where anything is. I've seen that over and over and over, experienced it myself. If you don't know where anything is of the family, it's disastrous. If you have something like, even as simple as this, sitting in a box somewhere, it will save your loved ones hours and hours of anxiety and pain. So even that alone is helpful. Okay, so we'll call it a day for now. Thank you.